Welcome to On the Road with Ranger Rose. I'm Roseanne McHenry, also known as Ranger Rose because I'm a former National Park Ranger. And today we're going to go into part 2 of our Death Valley adventure. We're going to be exploring the back roads and wild places of Death Valley National Park. And before I forget, I want to tell you right now, get down there right now if you can, because the wildflower bloom is spectacular. It's the biggest bloom we've had in 10 years, and there are flowers everywhere. They'll last up until about mid-April, and then up in the mountains probably for a couple of weeks after that. So the other thing is, always, whenever you go to Death Valley, you want to bring a couple of things along with you. This National Geographic map of Death Valley National Park, incredibly detailed, helpful map, and this book, Hiking Death Valley by Michel Digonet. This is a comprehensive source of roads, trails, and all the features in the park. So always want to have these along with you. So today we are going to go to a number of different places in the far reaches of the park. We're going to head out to the bottomless abyss of Devil's Hole, where tiny little desert pupfish live. Then as we're heading back from there, we're going to stop off at the spooky and curious Amargosa Hotel and Opera House. Why would there be an opera house out in the desert? We'll talk about that. Then we'll come back into the park, and our next trip will take us up to the ghost town of Rhyolite with its impressive 3-story tall stone ruins. And there's some great tales about that place. Then we'll head up the North Highway. This exciting road, which is also known as Scotty's Castle Road in the park, leads all the way up to Grapevine Junction, about 45 minutes north of Furnace Creek. And then we're going to continue all the way to the north and around and into this beautiful, stunning Eureka Valley with its 680-foot tall sand dunes. Then we'll head back down to the Yuba Hebe Crater. That's a great name to try and remember. We'll make fun of that a little later. in a good way, of course. And then out to Tea Kettle Junction and the spectacular Racetrack Valley. Then we'll head back down towards Stovepipe Wells. And by the way, folks, you won't be able to do all this in a day. It'll take you at least a week to head out to all these destinations, but this will give you a great idea of some of the far-reaching destinations in the park. We're going to head back down towards Furnace Creek and then out towards Emigrant Canyon Road. This is a road just 8 miles west of Stovepipe Wells, and we're going to go all the way up to the Wild Rose Charcoal Kilns, then down to the Eureka Mine and the stunning Agaberry Point, which sits 6,400 feet above Death Valley with a spectacular view, and then out to the town site of Skidoo, which has a macabre tale I'm going to tell you all about, and out to the spectacular 4-story high stamp mill ruins out there. And then our final trip is going to take us into Cottonwood and Marble Canyons. And there we're going to see petroglyphs, springs, caves, and we're going to talk about the wild burros that live out there. So now that we know where we're going, we'll get started. First of all, we're going to talk about places where you won't need a 4-wheel drive to get to, and we'll talk about a couple of places where you will. If you don't have a 4-wheel drive, not to worry. There's a place in Furnace Creek that rents Jeeps. So you can rent a Jeep for a day, for several days, for a week or more, and you don't have to miss out on seeing any of those beautiful backcountry areas. Now, you won't need a Jeep to get out to Devil's Hole. Devil's Hole is a 40-acre external unit of Death Valley National Park. You're going to head east out of the park, take Highway 190 out towards Death Valley Junction, and then continue to head east, and you'll see a sign that says Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge. Now this is a 23,000-acre National Wildlife Refuge, and it is a stunningly beautiful wetlands area. It has warm springs pools, kind of reminiscent of what you'd see in Yellowstone. Beautiful warm springs pools, really beautiful boardwalk walkways with exhibit signs that'll tell you all about the flora and the wildlife in the area. And in the north end of Ash Meadows is the Devil's Hole, that 40-acre external unit I told you about. Devil's Hole is a bottomless abyss. It's so deep that divers have gone down, and they've tried to go down as far as 500 feet and map the bottom. They can't find a bottom to the place. In fact, some divers have gone down and not come back out. They've been lost in the maze of caverns underneath. It's so deep that when there's an earthquake or a tsunami in Asia, the water sloshes up in Devil's Hole. Now that's deep. But it is also home to this stunning little bright blue Devil's Hole pupfish. They're not even an inch long. Now those pupfish are a protected species, and they're near extinction. The park staff goes out there several times a year to do dives and check on the population to try to sustain it. They're a remnant of what was a prehistoric fish population. They were much larger back then when lakes filled the area. The climate was much cooler. But as the climate warmed up, the lakes evaporated down into little pools and streams. Then the fish had to adapt to it. So don't miss this exciting day trip out to Ash Meadows and to Devil's Hole. On your way back coming in towards the park, be sure to stop off. When you get to Death Valley Junction, be sure to stop off at the spooky and curious Amargosa Hotel and Opera House. Now this hotel was built back in the 1920s by the Pacific Coast Borax Company, and it was built to house their mining staff to mine the borax in the area, and later to house tourists who came out to the area back in the early 1900s. But there are all kinds of haunted tales there. But the most curious thing about the place is the Opera House at the north end of the complex. Now this is a big auditorium, but back in the mid-20th century, a ballerina named Marta Beckett became fascinated with the area, and she took up residence at the Amargosa Hotel, and she painted the inside of the auditorium to look like an opera house. And she even painted people in all the seats so that she could always perform in front of an audience, a full house. Of course, she never had trouble drawing a full house. Marta Beckett performed for decades, well into her 90s, to full houses of live people. Enjoying her beautiful performances. So don't miss this exciting photo opportunity. I've taken pictures inside there. It's a stunning place. Then head back into Death Valley, because our next trip is going to take us out to Rhyolite. Now to get to Rhyolite, you're going to head east out of the park like you're going towards Beatty, Nevada, and just past the eastern park boundary, you'll see a sign that says Rhyolite. You can't miss it. You'll see the ruins in the distance. This is a fascinating ghost town. The 3-story tall ruins of stone still stand today. Now, Rhyolite had its beginnings in 1904 when a prospector by the name of Shorty Harris first discovered gold out there. He was poking around in the hills with his burros, and he found rich veins of gold. Once he realized that this was going to be a real strategic find, he quickly sold out his interest. Now, Shorty wasn't interested in wealth or riches. To him, it was all about the seeking and the finding of precious minerals. He didn't care about getting wealthy. He just wanted enough to keep on prospecting. And so, you know what he sold out his interest for? $700 and a burro. That was it. $700 and a burro. That's all Shorty needed to keep prospecting for the rest of the year. Of course, in 1904, $700 would be about $23,000 in today's money. Just enough to keep him going for about another year. But Rhyolite boomed big. There were over 8,000 people that came to live there. It had at one point over 3 different railroads coming into town, so they built a beautiful mission-style railway station there, and you can still see that today. They also built a 3-story building, 3-story schoolhouse, a bank building, and at one point, besides the 50 saloons, there were several swimming pools, a stock exchange, and there was an opera house in Rhyolite as well. There was one person that built a house out of 50,000 bottles, and you can still see that house today. It's called the Tom Kelly Bottle House, and you can walk all around this multi-room structure and see the bottles still in the walls. Now, why did he build a house out of bottles instead of wood? Well, wood was pretty hard to come by in the desert. But with 50 saloons in town, there were bottles everywhere. So he hired kids to bring him wheelbarrows full of bottles, and pretty soon he had enough to build the bottle house. So don't miss going to Rhyolite, because it's a fascinating place, just outside the eastern border of the park. When you come on back in, rest for the night, because our next trip is going to take us up the exciting North Highway. Now this road goes all the way up to Grapevine Junction, which is where you would turn off to see Scotty's Castle, a stone mansion in the desert. But we're going to continue past Scotty's Castle for several more miles. In fact, again, this is an overnight trip. You don't want to make this a day trip. It takes about 4 to 4.5 hours to get up to the Eureka Dunes. So plan on an overnight camp trip. Bring warm camping gear, down sleeping bag, a tent. We'll talk in a few moments about what else you might like to bring with you. But it's a long road. You don't need a four-wheel drive to get out there. I do recommend a high clearance vehicle. Know where your spare tire is, check your tires, know where your tire changing equipment is and how to use it. So if you get stuck out there, it's going to be a long time before help can come, and it can cost you several thousand for a tow. So just be prepared. But you can get out there in a regular vehicle, go all the way up to a place called Crankshaft Junction. I love that name. And then head out and around past Hanging Wall and down into the stunning Eureka Valley. There are 680-foot tall sand dunes out there, folks, and it takes about an hour to hike all the way to the top. But if you do that, you're going to be rewarded with a beautiful sweeping panoramic view of the absolutely gorgeous Eureka Valley. Please stay on park roads. During January, somebody drove off-road and carved tire tracks all over the dunes, and those tire tracks are going to be there for generations. So please stay on park roads. There are places south of Death Valley where if you want a dune buggy ride, you can go there. But the Eureka Valley is very fragile plant species. Also at night, the Eureka Dunes are a great place to just lay back on a nice soft sand dune and look up at the night sky, which is stunning up there. There's no light pollution to interfere with your view of the Milky Way. So just lay back and look up at that beautiful night sky. It's going to be gorgeous. Now, a few things that you would want to bring along with you on this overnight camp trip. Look at this tiny little box. You know what fits inside here? A camp stove that you can fit in the palm of your hand. Yeah, this is a jet boil stove. It fits on top of a little butane canister like this, and you can heat water in about a minute. So you definitely want to bring one of this along, and bring an extra butane canister just to make sure that you have enough fuel. Also, it's very dark up there at night. You're not going to have any lights to show you around. So I strongly recommend you bring along a hand crank flashlight. Now this is called a Running Snail brand. You can get these anywhere online. But it's an invaluable tool. How many times have you picked up a flashlight and then found out the batteries were dead? Pretty much every time, right? Well, with this, you just hand crank it for about a minute, and you'll get several minutes of light. Little button here will turn the light on. It also doubles as a radio, and you can even use it to charge up your cell phone. Not that you're going to get a cell phone signal up in Eureka Valley, but for when you come back, pretty handy. Also, you know, I went to Eureka Valley a few years ago, and the first thing I did in the darkness was slice my finger. So you want to have a first aid kit. Always have a first aid kit with you whenever you travel, and have things inside like Band-Aids, clean wipes, and butterfly closures, and a lot of different little pair of scissors, some bandages. Now for me, it just took a good solid Band-Aid to close up my cut. But always have a first aid kit with you, especially when you're going out in the middle of nowhere. And then I really like to bring along freeze-dried food. Freeze-dried food has come a long way since its inception. Nowadays it's pretty darn tasty, believe it or not. All you got to do is add some water to it, and you can heat that up with your jet boil stove. So just a few things to keep in mind. Oh, almost forgot. Solar lanterns. This is a solar lantern I really love. It stores flat, but when you inflate it, you've got a beautiful solar light, and you can recharge these in the sunlight. Again, no batteries needed. This is a great source of light for your campsite and inside your tent at night. So don't be without it. You can set it for a number of different settings, and an invaluable tool to have along with you. So heading out of the Eureka Valley, we're going to head south back down towards Grapevine Junction, and you'll see a sign on your right when you get there that says Yuba Hebe Crater. Now that's a Native American name. The funny thing about it is hardly anybody can remember how to say Yuba Hebe, so they make up accidentally really funny names like You and Me Be, Maybe We Be, Ganja Me Be, Hebe Jeebe. But you can give your own funny name to the place, but that's the Native American term for it, and it is a stunning crater. It looks like a little mini Grand Canyon in a bowl shape. And the way that it formed was anywhere from about 800 to 7,000 years ago. Nobody's sure exactly when, but very recently in geologic time. There was a huge explosion when underground water came into contact with molten rock deep down in the Earth's crust. And it expanded rapidly to steam and blew out a huge crater that sent tons of rock and debris into the sky. And once the dust settled, you had this beautiful multi-layered, multi-colored canyon there. So the road will take you right up to the rim. You can get out of your car and walk all around. You can hike down inside it. But it's definitely a great photo opportunity. Death Valley's own little bowl-shaped Grand Canyon. And then just head west from there out towards Tea Kettle Junction. Now, why is it called that? Well, first of all, it's a beautiful drive out there, about 19 miles to Tea Kettle Junction. I recommend a four-wheel drive. You can get out there in a two-wheel drive high-clearance vehicle, but it's going to take you a lot longer. Again, from Furnace Creek, probably about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive to get out there. So, head out towards Tea Kettle Junction, beautiful high desert area with Joshua Tree Forest, tall peaks all around you. You'll see these beautiful views of the basin and range dropping off in the distance with valleys and peaks and valleys and peaks. It's a gorgeous drive. You get out to Tea Kettle Junction, you'll see why it has that name. Because it's a four-sided sign, and all around it people have hung tea kettles of bright colors. People come from all over the world, and they hang up tea kettles with their name and city and their country where they came from. We were just there in January. We saw one from Australia, one from Japan, one from Poland, and of course from all over the West. So you can bring your own tea kettle and hang it up there. It's a great photo opportunity whether you bring a tea kettle or not. Be sure to stop there. The Park Service staff has to come along and take them down every few months because they get to be so many you can't even see the sign. But just follow the road out to the racetrack from there. It's just a short distance from the junction. And you'll come out into the beautiful racetrack valley. Now what this is, it's an ancient playa, a flat evaporated lake. So the ground is smooth clay pan. And all around it are tall mountain peaks. And then there's a rock island that pops right out of the center of this ancient playa. So it's a stunning area to see. Drive down to the parking lot on the north end to begin with and walk out to this rock island. It's called the Grandstand. Why does it have that name? Well, it's so you can climb up on top of it and watch dust tornadoes swirl past on windy days. Or if you're really intrepid, you can sit out there in an intense rainstorm and watch the rocks move. But most people don't want to do that. And actually, we ask you not to walk out onto the playa when it's wet because you'll leave footprints behind. But this was a mystery that stupefied people for decades until finally a really brave group of people went out there during a screaming rainstorm. A group of scientists, climate scientists, went out there and they watched what actually happens. And when the rain starts pouring hard and the wind is really up, well, the playa turns slick and the wind moves the rocks around. Then the rocks leave behind these mysterious trails that look like comets left behind. So on a nice dry day, when it's not a pouring rainstorm and you're out there, go out and walk around and take a look and you'll see all these rocks with little funny trails behind them. Please leave the rocks in place. Don't pick them up and move them around like some folks have done, because then somebody else comes along and they're like, well, I see this trail, but where's the rock? So leave them in place. But it's really fun to walk around out there. Drive down to the south end. All the way to the south end of Racetrack Valley is the Home Stake Campground. And you can actually camp there. You can stay for a few days, a week or more. You can reserve this campsite online. It's very simple to do. And you can hike around and take a look at all kinds of mining equipment left around the ground. There are old car frames. It's a fascinating place. And just over the hill is the Lippincott Mine, an old gold mining operation. So it's a great place to just kind of look around. And then head back out the way you came and back down the North Highway and on down into the main part of Death Valley, because our next excursion is going to take us out to the Emigrant Canyon Road. So I recommend you stay in Stovepipe Wells because Emigrant Canyon Road is about 6 miles west of Stovepipe Wells. And Stovepipe Wells, like Furnace Creek, has camping and lodging, so not to worry, there's a place to stay there. But head west on Highway 190, that's the main road that goes through the park, and you'll see a sign about 8 miles out, Emigrant Canyon Road. You go all the way up toward Wild Rose. Past the Wild Rose campground, you'll see a turnoff for the Wild Rose charcoal kilns. Now what are those? First of all, check the road conditions. Make sure there's no snow on the road. To get up there, you're going to see a row of 10 beehive ovens. Now these were formed by hand. They were built back in 1877 using local stone. And they're these huge, tall beehive ovens that were used to burn pinyon pine logs down into charcoal. And then the charcoal was used to fuel the nearby silver mines back in the days when they had to use charcoal to power equipment. Well, the silver mines closed just a couple of years after they built the ovens, and so the ovens are still in pristine condition. And you can walk all around them, you can walk into each one, and each one has its own personality. But the really fascinating thing about these ovens is that you have to shout to be heard. If you go in there with a companion and you try to talk, the sound disappears right into those stone walls. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. But anyway, don't miss the charcoal kilns, and then head back down that same road, Emigrant Canyon Road, until you see a sign that says Eureka Mine, Harrisburg, and Augaberry Point. Head out that road, just a good gravel road, and you'll come to a spot that says Harrisburg. That's just a collection of little mining cabins, and just beyond it is the Eureka Gold Mine. Now this is a place where a French man named Pete Augaberry mined gold for about 45 years. He was well respected in the area and very successful as a miner. And for a while, Shorty Harris, our aforementioned prospector from Rhyolite, joined him, and he named the little mining cabins Harrisburg after himself. But Pete actually built a road all the way out to a viewpoint, and you can see Augaberry Point is 6,400 feet above Death Valley, and it's a stunning panorama of the valley below. And the Eureka Mine is fascinating because there's a head frame, mining tunnels, and equipment all around, so it's a really interesting place to visit. Then head back out to Emigrant Canyon Road, just a little bit further down, turn right for Skidoo. Now Skidoo is a fascinating place with a spooky story about it. So follow the road around, and you're going to go past beautiful views of Death Valley below, and then you'll hook around and you'll come to the Skidoo town site where you will see absolutely nothing. There's nothing left of the town site. But there is an exhibit sign there with a picture of what the town once looked like. So you're thinking, well, what would I come all the way out here for to see a town that's not there? Keep going. Follow the road all the way out to the end. You'll come to a beautiful viewpoint and hike down on the right, and you'll see the 4-story tall stamp mill that's there. This is a really impressive sight. And you can walk all around it and take a look at how they once crushed the rock from big chunks down to fine powder at the bottom. But it's a fascinating sight to see. Then head back out. Now, before we do that, talk about Skidoo for a minute. This was a wild and tumble place. It had its beginnings in the early 1900s when gold was discovered there, and pretty soon it was a big boomtown of canvas tents. But the wildest thing about Skidoo is the story of the madman, Joe, middle name Hooch Simpson. He was named Hooch because he was running a saloon in town, but he was an outlaw and a wild man. And for a reason nobody really understands, one day he had a vendetta with the town banker and businessman, Jim Arnold. And he had too much, Hooch had too much to drink. He wandered into Jim Arnold's store and threatened him, came back a little later with a gun and said, "Prepare to die!" Shot poor Jim Arnold fatally in the chest. Jim Arnold fell over and died later that day. So the townspeople grabbed Hooch and threw him into a makeshift jail. But some of those citizens were so angry that a group of vigilantes broke into the jail that night and hung Hooch from a telephone pole. Then they buried him. Now you would think that's where he stayed, right? But several days later, a reporter from the Los Angeles Times came out and they wanted to film the trial and the hanging. Well, there was no hanging to be seen because Hooch was already in the ground. But the ever-enterprising citizens of Skidoo, not wanting to miss a photo opportunity, dug Hooch up, dusted him off, and hung him a second time from the same telephone pole. So there's stories about Hooch still wandering around in the hills around Skidoo. Maybe don't go out there at night. We're going to head back down to Immigrant Canyon Road, back down towards Stovepipe Wells for the night, because our next adventure, our final journey, is going to take us out into the beautiful Cottonwood and Marble Canyons. Now again, be sure you know where your tire changing tools are in your vehicle and have a spare. This is definitely a four-wheel drive road, folks, so if you don't have a Jeep, rent one from Furnace Creek before you go out into Cottonwood Canyon. The road is 26 miles long. You could go out there for a week and look around at everything, or you can make a day trip of it, just leave early in the morning and come back before dark. But it's a stunning area. There are amazing canyon narrows, petroglyphs on the canyon walls. There are caves, there's springs, there's all kinds of wonders out there. And at about the 10-mile mark, you're going to see a turnoff for Marble Canyon. Now you can't drive in there, it's closed to vehicles, but you can hike into Marble Canyon and you'll see the most beautiful limestone canyon narrows in places only this wide. And a lot of people do multi-day packing trips. So they'll go on a backpacking trip and go all the way from Marble Canyon to Cottonwood Canyon and back around. Now you can do that if you like, or just hike in a little bit and come on back to your car. But it is a beautiful, beautiful area to see. And remember I mentioned about those wild burros earlier. How did they get there? How do they stay alive? What is their future? Well, the burros got there from all the prospectors. There were many prospectors in Death Valley back during the late 18 and early 1900s. And when they decided their prospecting days were over, they just let their burros loose. Well, if you got a couple of burros out there, pretty soon you'll have several dozen, and then several hundred, and then several thousand. And that's not so good for the environment because they eat up everything that native wildlife really need, like the bighorn sheep. Burros forage on natural plants that grow around springs. So every year the Park Service has to herd the wild burros and remove some of them from the valley and put them up for adoption. So you can go to the Bureau of Land Management website, BLM website, and adopt your own burros if you want. Maybe if you've got a big enough backyard, you'd like a burro or two. But they're available for adoption. So, like the wild burros of Death Valley, I mean, there are so many things, and we've covered a lot of ground, like the wild burros, but we've only barely scratched the surface of all the different things there are to see in Death Valley. So be sure to visit the park website at www.nps.gov/DEVA for Death Valley. And you can get updates on all the latest road conditions and things to see in the park. Very important to do that before you go anywhere. Please feel free to email me at rangerrose123@gmail.com. I'll be happy to help you with planning trip itineraries, answer questions you have. Happy to do that. And look for me on Instagram at Ask Ranger Rose, because we're constantly posting new information up there about places to go and things to see. And then finally, please visit my website at triptalesbook.com, where you can download your free copy of Ranger Rose's Road Tripping Tips. This is a free 12-page booklet that tells you all about things that you'd like to bring on any kind of road trip going anywhere. So just go to my website and you can download that and also learn about the books that I've written about the life of a park ranger. So our next episode, we're going to be talking about Point Reyes National Seashore, right on our own California Sonoma coast. So until we meet next time, my friends, happy trails.